The Chernobyl nuclear power plant was supposed to become one of the world's most powerful electricity-generating facilities, and Pripyat was supposed to become a happy city of nuclear workers. The peaceful atom, which was supposed to become a worker, not a soldier, became a soldier who drove people out of their homes forever. This film about the history of the city of Pripyat was made by video designer Andrei Gupsa, with the support of the best screenwriter in Kharkiv. And now this movie has been adapted for fans of the Stalker game. Enjoy the movie. The beginning of the 1960s. It was planned to build 9 nuclear power plants in Ukraine at once. One of the most powerful nuclear power plants was to be located near the capital, near Kiev. It was to provide the Kiev economic region with electricity. In 1965, 16 different sites were considered for this nuclear power plant. These sites were located in the Zhytomyr, Vinnytsia, and Kiev regions. So, if a different decision had been made then, the exclusion zone could have appeared in a completely different place. But the right bank of the Pripyat River was considered the most ideal site for the NPP. The river was 4 kilometers from the village of Pripyat and 15 kilometers north of the city of Chornobyl. Thanks to the river, it was possible to build the future cooling pond, which was to provide the future station with sufficient water. The Chernihiv-Overuch railway line ran nearby, and the Yaniv railway station was located. That is, the future nuclear power plant could easily be supplied by rail. Three types of reactors were considered for the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The first option was a water-water power reactor. This is a high-quality and reliable reactor. However, the Soviet Union did not have a well-established technology for the production of vessels for these reactors. The second option is a graphite gas reactor. Reactors of this type are considered the safest in the world. The third option is a high-capacity channelized reactor. This type of reactor was the easiest to manufacture, but had many drawbacks and was used only in the Soviet Union. And it was this reactor that was chosen for the Chernobyl NPP. And as it will become clear later, this reactor, if designed incorrectly, turns into a huge dirty nuclear bomb. We all know that this bomb unfortunately exploded, but before the tragedy, the people of that time knew only that they were building the most powerful power plant in Europe, and next to it, they were building a dream city that was to become a home for the workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The first houses in Pripyat were built in 1970. These were dormitories. The construction workers were settled in the surrounding villages and rented rooms from local residents. During the construction of Pripyat and the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, it was decided to abandon the barracks and immediately start building capital houses. Therefore, they tried to involve local residents in the construction. They could even retrain them from other professions. After the decision was made to increase the capacity of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant to 4,000 megawatts, it became necessary to increase the town of nuclear workers to 17,300 people. It was necessary to make adjustments to the master plan of the project, to increase the number of stories in many buildings to 9 and 12 floors, as well as to build a third neighborhood. Pripyat's architects could make changes to the project without approval from higher authorities. During the construction of one of the roads, it turned out that it passed through the place where the spring is located. It was decided to move the road to another location, but to preserve the spring and turn it into a recreation area. The second case was when 5 large wild pears with a lot of fruit were discovered during the construction of a neighborhood. Waiting for new ones to grow is a long time, and it is expensive to plant adult ones. Therefore, it was decided to redesign the neighborhood and make sure that these 5 pears grew on the territory of the kindergarten. Many people are probably thinking, did they really pay so much attention to such trifles at that time? But you should understand that most builders were building the city for themselves. They were building the city of their dreams. That's why they did their best. The chief architect of the city claimed that he wanted to make Pripyat as compact as possible. He wanted a person to leave the house and walk to the central square, to the forest for mushrooms, and to the river beach in 10 to 15 minutes. In general, he dreamed that Pripyat would become a closed city, with no vehicles ever passing through it. Unfortunately, this is what happened, but not as he dreamed. The architect of Pripyat also dreamed that the city would be buried in vegetation, but it is unlikely that he dreamed about this. Indeed, much attention was paid to the city's greenery. All neighborhood courtyards and all territories of city institutions were subject to greening. Dozens of varieties of trees and shrubs were planted, both young and old. Some of them were very rare for this climate zone. In addition to ornamental trees, fruit and berry trees were planted on the territory of children's institutions. Green fences were used everywhere. At that time, cities for nuclear workers were built according to similar projects and stood out among other cities due to their higher level of improvement. But Ukrainian Pripyat stood out even among other nuclear cities. Palace of Culture Energetic. The building was constructed in the Soviet postmodernism style in the early 70s. It seems to be an ordinary palace of culture. There is one in every city in the Soviet Union. Such buildings usually hosted hobby groups, various concerts and performances. Visiting artists performed there, and before the New Year, a Christmas tree was set up in front of it. But the energetic Palace of Culture was built according to a completely unique project. Its cladding was made of white marble, and the inside was made of volcanic tofu. The palace had a gym, a small swimming pool, and a cinema. The sign Palace of Culture was illuminated in blue at night, and the energy sign was red. Nearby is the Polissya Hotel. It is also a typical Soviet building from the mid-70s. But you need to understand that the hotel was primarily built for officials who could come to inspect the construction, and for highly qualified scientists who could come to Chernobyl. The hotel had quite luxurious rooms by Soviet standards. In the future, the top floor of the hotel was planned to be turned into a cafe with a panoramic view of the city and a summer terrace. Unfortunately, the panoramic view of Pripyat and the Chornobyl nuclear power plant was useful only to the liquidators. Helicopters were controlled from the roof of the hotel, which dropped sand on the fourth power unit. Liquidators and dosimetrists stayed in the hotel rooms. Nearby was the Prometheus cinema with 420 seats. It was one of the favorite places of recreation for local youth. The cinema was very beautiful, decorated with ceramic tiles. There was a huge mosaic on one of the walls. The signs were also illuminated. One of the symbols of Pripyat is Prometheus. He is a titan from Greek mythology. He gave people fire. Fire can give people light and warmth, or it can turn into a fire. This is what happened to this city. The peaceful atom gave people light and warmth, and when they did not cope with it, it turned into a fire. Nearby is the embankment, the pier from which one could take a boat to Kiev in 2.5 hours. There was also a boat station and a city beach nearby. The Pripyat Cafe was located on the waterfront. It had stained glass windows. In this cafe, people could sit at a table, look at the river, and drink tea or coffee. Pripyat was a very young city. The average age of a resident was 26.5 years. It is not surprising that such a city had the highest birth rate in the country. Every year, 1,000 children were born. This was not taken into account when the town was built. The local maternity hospital with 30 beds could not cope. It was necessary to urgently build a new one for 70. The town had 4,000 places in kindergartens. This was more than in other cities with the same population. But it was not enough, and we had to build 2,000 more places. Because of this strong demographic explosion, new neighborhoods had to be built. The population was constantly growing. At the time of the accident, 5 neighborhoods were built in the city of Pripyat. The population was 49,500 people. In the fifth neighborhood, several high-rise buildings had not been completed, and they were already digging a pit for the sixth. The city's population was supposed to grow to 80 or even 85,000 people in the next 5 years. In the next few years, it was planned to open a branch of the Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, build a 2-story cinema, a palace of culture, and a huge shopping center. On April 27th, the residents of Pripyat were supposed to have a warm weekend. Some would go to the beach, others would walk around the center. Some would go to the countryside with friends or help relatives plant potatoes. The children would go to the newly opened amusement park with cars, merry-go-rounds, and a Ferris wheel. Andriy is looking for a sponsor to publish his magazine Nenka about the Chernobyl exclusion zone. There are also a lot of videos about Pripyat and more on this channel. Choose what resonates with you. Good luck!